Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and anybody that's new, welcome. So today we are going to do a Jenga block Highland Cow. We are going to use some DT supplies, including the fur. We're going to use the tumbling tower blocks, aka Jenga blocks. You can find them in the kids section. They come in this kind of package, or the package can be blue as well, and there's 72 blocks per box. You can order them online if you are in the US. I heard that you can order minimum 3, and then I've had other crafters tell me that you have to order a case, or you could try asking your manager if you don't have any in your store when they do get them in, if they can give you a call. Now, I also have been told that the ones, if you do order them and ship to your store in the US, you don't have to pay shipping. If you sign up with dollartree.com, they do sometimes give coupons out for a flat rate shipping for $5.99. Just to keep that in mind. I am going to use Well Bond. I know DT sells wood glue. That would be the only glue that I would use, as long as it's wood glue. I wouldn't use hot glue unless you're just gluing on 1 or 2 pieces. They will not seal properly with hot glue, and eventually it will fall apart. The Well Bond I buy it in Rona. You can buy it at Lowe's, Michael's. Oh, and Nikki said Hobby Lobby carries it as well. Now, I've never seen the DT wood glue, but apparently a lot of crafters say it works well. So if your store does carry it, I know here in Canada, our store has never carried it. So I'm going to use Well Bond. DT sells these L-shaped ruler, carpenter ruler. You can find them in the hardware section. They're really good to use to keep your blocks straight when you are gluing them together, such like this, keeping them straight. Now, you might notice on the top part, they will be straight on more on one side than the other, only because the blocks are not perfect, and you can't expect that for the amount that we pay for them. Now, in the video, when I say stacked, it will mean one stacked right on the top of the other. We are just going to do the body part is going to be stacked, and one just flat is just like this as well. When I do glue my blocks, I pre-glue them. Otherwise, this video would be an hour or 2 long. Just for example, if I'm gluing 4 or 5 or how many down the side, I do glue them and I just move them. Oops. I move them up, and then I will do another row and keep moving them up, and then I will move around my tray and let them all dry together. Depending on your glue, just make sure that you do read the back label, just to make sure up to drying time, as different glue takes a little bit longer than others. I like to give Well Bond at least a good couple hours. No filing or that. I mean, it does dry really fast, but it cures in about 24 hours. But you can play with it or paint it beforehand. Just be careful that you're not knocking it around or anything, because a piece might come off. Now we are going to start with the body. I do suggest having a pen and paper. Makes it a little bit easier, just so you can keep the amount of blocks. I'm going to tell you the number of blocks at the end when we get to the nose, just because I'm not sure with the count with the nose yet. And as I go along with you, I'm learning too. I just have an idea and we build it together. So we are going to start with the body, and they are going to be stacked. You're going to need 7 stacked one on top of each other like this. You're going to need 18 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're going to need another row of those. So that's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You're going to have them like this. Once you have your 2 stacks like that, you are just going to glue them together to be one, like a solid brick. Like that. And just, you can put the ruler there and glue them like that. Now that I glued the 2 bricks, I'll call them bricks, together, we're going to just attach them with each other. So we're just going to throw on some glue. So this will be the main body. We are actually going to add a little front chest to it, but we're going to wait till it's dry. So I don't know if that's going to be enough. And as you can see, some of the blocks, the one side is more level than the back side. It's just the way the blocks are, unfortunately. We're just going to glue that on just like that. I know it's sticking out one part, but it's going to all be getting covered with fur. So we're going to leave that to dry. The next thing we're going to do is, the body is 140 blocks. So 140 blocks for both rows. And we're going to do the legs. Legs, you know, Highland cows are shorter, more narrower. If you've done my cow, and I actually have my cow here. I was just going to show you my cow that I did, the Jenga block cow. You'll notice with the blocks here, it is wider. So it's not, I know sometimes people say that's a similar build, but sometimes changing the blocks are this way. But when you look at the upside, it's that way. I don't know if you know what I mean, sorry. But it's going to be a lot shorter than my cow. So we are going to do 8 blocks, and we're just going to do stack of 2. And while we have this gluing, we can glue the blocks. Just make sure they're even. Sometimes it just depends on the corner you're on. And you're just going to glue them on like that. I'm going to put that over there for now. You're going to glue it on like that. So the neck part, we are going to use 6 blocks. We're going to do 3 flat and another 3, and we're going to glue those 2 on. And then we are going to get to the face. We're going to do 4 blocks. Now with the 4 blocks like this, you are going to need 8 of them. So there's 4 and there's 4. You are going to glue a section of 4 together like that, and another section of 4 glued like that. So for fur, we are going to use some bears from Dollar Tree. I thought this was a perfect color for the Highland Cow. I just really liked how it looked. Now I already took one apart, but I am going to go through with one with you. I did buy extras. I actually was taking this off for another project, so I did take his arms off already. But if you follow down, you know, when you sew, I can't even remember what this stitch remover, it would only, if you pull down or use some sharp scissors, you can follow along the line. I don't even know where I'm. Now I find pulling it apart, because the fur actually is pretty solid fur. We're going to do patchwork. So even if it messes up a bit, guys, when we glue on the fur, it's going to be, you're not even going to notice, because it is fuzzy. When we do the patchwork on it, it's going to be, it's not noticeable. So if you do make a mistake and you rip a piece, don't worry about it. We will get to it. Now you're going to take all the stuffing out of it. I should have just did that first. And you can always keep this stuffing, because it's great for another project you may use that you need something to stuff or make a little bit bigger. So this is a little bit, I did the first one. It took me about 20 minutes. I'd say about 20 minutes, half an hour, to totally take one of the bears apart. Now I'm thinking, as we do the project, it's going to be 2 bears you're going to need. I do have a third one if I need it, but I think we're only going to need 2. So I'll let you know at the end and show you the count. And if you just pull it, it actually, and every once in a while you cut it. I could use the thing there, but I'll just use my scissors. It's just along the line as you go. And you can see as I break it along. You just have to make sure you pull all the thread out afterwards. I'm probably cutting, I think, some of the material here. But when you turn it inside out, other than the arms would be on it, you're going to get, so you're going to have to go along the stitching. So it's probably easier just to go along here. And you don't have to do every one because you can just start pulling it through. Unless you have fur on hand that you prefer to use. I know I've seen a few Highland cows that were made differently, but they were bought, I think, from Amazon. The fur was a lot more expensive. And I know I've gone to the fabric store here and the fur was just crazy. And for the money you pay for these at Dollar Tree, why not use this fur? And I just think this is the perfect color. So I could be on here for 20 minutes. I'm not going to show you, but I'm just trying to show you the gist of it. So once I pulled the other one apart, and I'm going to show you, it came, and I took my time, and I try to rush when I'm trying to record this, but this is the front. We might need some cutting this out, but see what I'm saying? You get some nice fur in sections. And then keep the ears. Try to keep the ears. I think the ears will be perfect for its ears in front or behind the horns. I haven't decided yet. And when I was taking it apart, it's weird because one piece already had the holes cut here. And I think it was just maybe the way it was sewn when I took out the... And then there was another piece that I was able to fully take out. So I think we're only going to need two, guys. I really do. We are going to find out. But in the meantime, when you let your stuff glue, your blocks glue, good thing is that you can already start on this. So once it is glued, we can move on to the next step. All right, so I let them dry overnight and it turned out pretty good. You're going to see some imperfections here because, like I said, it was the blocks. Now, when we wrap the fur, I don't want it to be flat. I want to add a little bit of an extra part on the front of the cow. We're just going to take 5 blocks. They're going to be glued flat like this. We are just going to glue it right in the center. Make sure it's even with the top and just glue it on like that and let that dry. And then the next thing we're going to do is the face. So we did glue these parts on already. So we had the 4 rows of 4 and another 4 rows of 4, so it would be 32 blocks. I don't know if I said 36, but it was 32 blocks. We're just going to glue that right on top, even with the back, so you have a little bit of a line here in the front, and you're going to glue it on just like that. Going to add the neck. The neck is 3 and 3, like I said, is 6 blocks, and that's just going to go even. You're going to glue it just like that, and I'll just glue it lying down like that so it stays flat and flushed. The same with the neck on the bottom. You want it even as well and right in the middle. So we'll glue those on before we start on to the next step. Now that I separated both of the bears, as you can see, I am missing the one arms on the one. I took them off and I was going to use them for something, and I can only find one of the arms, but it's not a big deal. We'll have well enough fur to put on the cow. Now, the faces we can go around. You just got to make sure. I thought I took all the little white pieces off them. I did want to show you. I'm just going to show you before we start with that. They do come, and these are actually bigger. As you can see, the ones we're using is this size. They came in these ones too, and I bought a bunch just because I thought it'd be great to use some fur on future projects. If you see them, grab some because they're great, and just, you know, as fun fur is hard to find, and you don't really find it at DT instead of paying the bigger dollars at some of the crafting stores. I'm going to show you a piece here. I'm just trying to find the back of the head. Now you can't see, but if you look down you can see through the fur just a little bit. If you take it up and put it towards a window, you can see through it just a little bit. So in order to put it on the cow, I want to put a coat of brown paint, just one coat, just so when you're gluing on the fur that you don't see any little spots, because with it being a dark color, if you miss a little spot, you might see the blocks. So I just want to put a dark coat, and I don't have enough in here of the burnt brown. If you have another brown, it doesn't have to be the exact color, but something that you just won't see through. So I just have cinnamon brown from another dollar store that I have, and I have a full bottle of it. So we're just going to give them a quick coat, one coat of the paint before we move on to gluing on the fur. So the next thing, we haven't glued on the head yet, and I just think it's a lot easier if we actually do a portion, all the body, before we actually glue the head on. So it depends on the angle that you want to look. If you want it to look that way, you can do it that way. We still haven't done the nose, so it's really straight right now. But I'm gonna do it on an angle like this, but I will glue it after. I just took a little marker here and spaced out the line for the place that I am not going to put any fur right now. So the ones that you can cut off the arms, this is the one that had no arms on it. And when cutting the fur, and I think I've showed this before, it's always better that you kind of section it. So for example, if I want to cut it here, just kind of putting the line, so then it's not so, and you'll find it's a lot easier, and then to cut it with some very sharp scissors. Now these are my fabric ones. Right on here, this part here, I'm gonna drape this over, and I'm gonna put it right to where the butt ends. And I'm just gonna take it and I'm gonna cut it here. So I'm gonna mark it there roughly. I'm gonna just kind of, it's gonna be like kind of like, I guess if you wanna call it like patchwork. So whatever works better for you. I'm just gonna kind of do it. It's just gonna kind of freehand. I hope I'm not cutting a lot of the fur. Little ends off. So it matches up there. Gonna hot glue it right down. And even with this little flaps right here, I'm just gonna hot glue it there. So let me hot glue that one piece on. So now that I got it glued on, you'll notice the back's like this. That's fine. Like I said, you can cut it, but when you cut it, you're gonna get little pieces like that. You're just gonna have to try to take all the little pieces out before you do that. So the part that I cut in the front, I have this little slab left from it. I am gonna cut it down, and it's just gonna fit in perfect right there. And if you have a little bit hanging over, you can just glue it right between the legs like that. Now that I have the back piece glued on, I think it looks really good. Just gonna fluff the hair around. So that's the one side of the bear. So there's still the other side. Now there's different ways you can do it. You can just cut it up in pieces. You could take these ones off and fiddle it around. I'm not gonna put any, I haven't decided, I don't think I'm gonna put any fur on the bottom, only because you're not gonna see the bottom when it's upright. And if you put too much fur here length, it's gonna take it away from the legs. I'm just gonna cut pieces and go all the way around here. And I will leave the legs, and then I'll show you with the legs once I get that done. So now that I did it all the way around, I did do some patchwork, and you cannot see it. And the best thing about this, it's nice and fluffy. So I am not gonna do underneath like I said earlier. So I'm just gonna take some pieces just like we did with the rest. You'll notice there's also some little burnt marks. I don't know if they kind of burnt it just so it wouldn't fray. But we're just gonna cut little stuff like that off when you're putting it on. And just wrapping the legs. So when you are wrapping and putting the hot glue on, just make sure that you don't have any of the hot glue, so then it will be unbalanced, and you can wrap it around. You don't have to do it too close to the end, and the fur will just cover it. So we'll just do the next 4 on the legs. So onto the head. It's a lot easier, like I said earlier, to do the fur while it's not attached moving around, but I think it turned out really well, nice and fuzzy. And the head next, this was the face. On the back, when you take them apart, you know it comes out in one piece where you take all the lining. We are just gonna hot glue it right on. Still trying to get this, okay. I'm just gonna take the flat part of the head that was cut and place it right down. Kind of center it. I'm over a little bit, but that's okay. And I still have, I thought I got all these little white stringies. Every once in a while I've been finding a little one every now and then. Next part is we're just gonna glue it right to the back like that. Now you don't have to do exactly what I'm showing you here. You could just do the patchwork like I said. You can't tell when you do it because it's all glued. Next part, I'm gonna glue this part. I'm just gonna put it right on that side and the other side. You're gonna have these kind of sticking out, and that's okay because that'll just define some ears a little bit more. And then you're just gonna have to cover the back. So I am just gonna do it off camera. I'm just gonna cover right the back. I'm just gonna leave the front, but I am gonna do the sides. Now that I glued it on, I'm thinking the head is a little bit too tall, so obviously it's already glued together and I'm not gonna waste fur. And I do have enough fur to do another head. I would suggest taking one row out, the neck part, there's 2 rows, 3 and 3. I would suggest taking one row out just to make it a little bit shorter. I'm just gonna put some blocks here just to keep it on an angle, how I'm gonna have it. Now, because it is, I find a little bit too tall, I'm just gonna take a strip of my fur and I'm just gonna wrap it. Excuse me, sorry, I just finished dinner. Around and blend it in to make it a little bit more beefy around the neck so it blends in a little bit. I just thought it was just a little bit too big. Now, I'll show you the fur I still have left. So I still got that much, that piece, and a couple just a little tiny pieces, but I don't think one would do it. I think you'd need 2. Now, with that being done, doing his nose, gonna take 2 Jenga blocks, 4 2 and 2 flat, glue them on each other, and I use the Dremel pen, but if you don't have one, you can always use a coarse file from DT, and there's also the crafting that you could file around just to make it more rounder. Now, I just wanted to show you something that I've noticed because I do a lot of Jenga block crafts, tumbling tower from DT. I just wanted to show you the difference. So as you can see, the grain in here, and these ones don't have as much grain in them. These are a lot better to file than these ones. They're a lot harder. I've noticed that even with my Dremel drill, I just noticed the grain on these. So when you're doing the nose, try to pick something a little bit lighter. I'm just going to show you here because I already, oopsie. I already have the nose done glued already. But it's a lot easier to file. So even though I used my drill, I did go over with the coarse nail file because it makes it a lot smoother and using the buffer after. So that will go there. And I'm just gonna fluff the fur out, up, side, and down for a place like that. Now we are gonna paint that color. I'm gonna do a warm beige instead of an off-white. Another thing I found from DT, colors are different. They're exactly the same name, warm beige, warm beige. And I noticed because I had 2 bottles, and I'll show you the difference. I don't know why they are different. But one's a lot darker than the other. Don't know why. So I just thought I'd show you that. I am gonna go with the little bit darker one, and I am going to paint the nose, and then we're gonna do something else to the nose as well. So when I painted the 2-on-2 blocks for the nose, I decided to drill some holes in it. It reminded me of when I did my cow head. I really wanted to add the holes in for the nostrils. Now I did use a drill bit, and I'm going to show you that here. I just used one of my hand drill, and I just used the bigger drill bit, the 1/4, and went downwards and did on an angle to get a nostril. So I'm gonna go with that, and I'm just gonna leave it as is. Now, if you don't have that, you could do, I'm just gonna show you the Jenga Block cow. This one was just some stickers that I had, and I just glued them on there. You could do that for nostrils. You can paint them on. If you're good with painting, you could paint them on. You could use a nylon, and because we took some of the stuffing to use the bear fur out of the bear, you could stuff a nylon as a nose as well. There's a couple different options, like I said. These ones here are their little DT wood cookies. I've seen them in groups. I haven't seen them in my stores, but I've seen them more rectangular. And I think even those ones would be really good. I used one of these for my pig nose, my Jenga Block pig that I did as well, and I drilled some holes, I believe, in the nostrils. On that one, but they have more the rectangular one that you could do with that. Now, the little indent that I did on the Jenga blocks was just with my Dremel drill. I know a few of you have messaged me saying you bought them and that you really like them. All I did was just go back and forth and just sanded it up that way, and then took a DT buffer and just made it more smooth. If you don't have a drill, you don't have to. Like I said, I just gave you a couple different options. So I'm just gonna leave that as is, and that will just be hot glued on here like that. Now, looking at pictures, I always, when I have an inspiration to create something, I look at real pictures. I don't look at craft pictures of the Highland Cow. Usually has that hair hanging in front. I try to play around with this fur to hang it in the front. To me, it doesn't work. So I'm trying to remember what I cut her hair. And if you remember, I've cut her hair. I've already done one to put on there, and it actually looks pretty good. Now, these come in just a little Barbie head. They come in a little box in the Dollar Tree in the kids section. And I've already did one, but I'm going to go through with you just so I can show you how holding the hair down. Now, I would put a braid and leave it for the day or two just to get a little bit of a kink in it. Usually on the pictures you see they're more straight, and I think the color matches pretty darn good with these bears. I just really like it. Okay, we are gonna just grab a piece of that fur that we're using. This is gonna be my test one. I've already done one, but we're gonna go over it. I'm just gonna grab a paper towel. Now, when we are cutting the hair, I would put it in a ponytail like this so it doesn't get all frayed. And you're just going to want to cut it. I'm trying to remember what I made that I already used hair like this from here, and it wasn't for the Jenga block. Wasn't the Jenga block unicorn one. I'm trying to think which one I used it for, and I can't remember now. So I'm gonna make sure it's like that. And you're just gonna grab a piece of fur. I don't know which way to put it. We'll just put it this way for now. And you're just gonna put a bunch of hot glue down. And you're just gonna glue it on like that. I would spread it out a little bit more. I'm just trying to, I'm gonna need another glue stick, guys, 1 sec. But I just think it gives it a really good look for that, with the hair hanging in the front. You guys might have your own ideas what you want to do. And you're just going to keep dabbing the glue on there, the hair, to make sure it goes all the way through the other little pieces. You could do it in sections if you want. Then you just got to let it dry for a couple minutes before you start playing around with it. Now I'm just going to use little scissors. Where's my little scissors? I'm just going to cut the elastic off. You don't want to be pulling the elastic off because it might pull. You might have to put a second coat on, but you'll know after it's not fully dry. So I don't want to, you don't want to be pulling the elastic off. But if you do a braid on the head first, I just find you get a nice little kink. There's a little bit of a wave to this. I'm just going to stop the video, and once it's dry, we're going to come back and I'll show you what we'll do next. Okay, I just let it dry for a couple minutes. Looks pretty good. It's not coming off. Now, if you look at a picture of a Highland Cow, it usually goes like kind of in a V in the front, and it really depends. I'm just going to cut so I don't make a big mess of hair. I'm just going to cut it to roughly here. And you're just going to then you're just gonna, where is my comb? Where's my comb? My desk becomes such a big mess. I have a comb somewhere. So I don't know if any of you have ever trimmed hair. I think it's gonna be too long here. Of course I picked the wrong hair, it's all going to the side. You're just gonna have to play around cutting the hair. And the good thing is she has a full head of hair if you mess up. Now this one looks, because of the fur I cut here, this was just a piece of scrap, and I'm going to show you a better one here in a second. But this is the idea of getting it with that. So make sure this top part of the fur has some fur sticking out so you can blend it in, and I'm going to show you that in a second. I got hair everywhere. So this is the one that I did. As you can see, it has longer fur in the front here that it covers right in. Now, if you notice when you glue it on here, it's going to be, the fur is going to be, the hair is going to be sticking, oops, the hair will be sticking up. What I did overnight, where you glued it, I just bent it with my fingers, flipped it over for the night. I stuck some Jenga blocks on it, made sure everything's flipped over. Just like that, and I left it overnight, woke up, and this morning it was like this. So it's more bent over, plus when you bend here, when you put it on, now you can see the angle, it's kind of choppy, and I think it just looks really well right here. And you'll glue it down right in the front where you position it. Now, a lot of them don't have eyes, some have one eye. You don't have to put any eyes if you want. I just made with the vase filler, the glass gems. You don't color the front. I just dabbed the back with some black paint, so you get a nice eye like that. I'm just gonna place it right there that it's just gonna be partially exposed with a little bit of, I'm gonna trim that probably hair a little bit more of an angle. So you just see a little bit of an eye peeking out. I think that's just super cute, gives it a little bit of a definition. So once I'm gonna glue that on, but I'm not gonna do it on camera. We're gonna move on to the next step. Let's move this guy over here. So for horns, I've been wanting to make this for a while, and I try to look up, someone did request this months ago. I try to look, and I don't know where she messaged me, what platform. I don't think it was on YouTube. It was on one of my pages that she requested months ago, and I thought long and hard about it, and I was trying to think about horns. You can get these DT kitchen play set at Dollar Tree in the kids section. It comes with all these other ones. I mean, the pumpkins are good, you could use again. I could totally see doing this for Thanksgiving, where you could put some raffia on it and painting, you know, I see these being reused again. The other ones too could be made, I think this is supposed to be cauliflower or broccoli, I think. But I mean, I could totally see that being painted and made like a rose. Similar anyways. But they had the hot peppers, so that was like, as soon as I saw that, I said I definitely need that. No, they only give you 1 hot pepper per bag, so you will need 2. You could also use felt. Felt is a good option for the, you know, if you actually did a design, turn it inside out, you could do the felt. I'm just going to use some cutters, and it's plastic, so I'm using wire cutters, so probably not the best idea, but there we go. I'm just going to press it down. And if you want to cut a little bit more, you can just cut it along the side. So it's more of a flat ridge, so when we glue it onto the head, it has something to glue on. Now, if you ever try to paint plastic, you know that the DT paint is not the best to paint on plastic because it does come off. We're just gonna grab our buffer and our filer, and you're just gonna buff it so it has something to hold on to. You could also afterwards, after you buff it, you could just wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol before you paint it. So you're just gonna mesh around like that. And you're just gonna make it coarse, which is fine because horns are not like sleek and proper looking, you know, look a little bit beat up, well used, gives it some character. So once you got all that done and you buffed it, you put some rubbing alcohol, then it's dry, just take a dowel and put it right in there, and you're gonna paint it. And I'm gonna use the same paint that I did the nose on there. Now the fun part, I may paint, but I'm not a very big blender kind of painty kind of person. But once it is all beige, you're gonna add these colors to it. If you see the $1.50 here in Canada, our prices went from $1.25 to $1.50, and here in Canada, when your prices went up from $1 to $1.25, if you see the sticker, sometimes I get questioned that why we pay $1.50. Now these are just acrylic paints, but I'm gonna paint it and then I'm gonna show you how I did one. I already did a horn, but I'm gonna show you once we get to that step. All right, so I put 3 coats, a good 3 coats after I filed it and took it off with the alcohol after I did it. Now you'll see a little hole. If you put enough paint over the hole, it should cover it. So I'm just gonna grab a couple more. Now the blending part is all about, I guess, how much you wanna put on there. You can leave them plain. You can add your own little colors. Like I said, I want to make it more of a weathered look. The light brown, and then I got a brown marron and excuse me, lamp black. I'm just going to do lightly with the strokes on there. Now, I would have used chalk paint, but they didn't have any in the store. I don't know why we had so much months ago. and have the right colors. Now, I also just use my finger to blend it in well too. It's probably not the right way to do it. And then you just keep going all the way around. If you put more in one spot, just use your finger. I also thought when I was trying to figure out some of the ideas for the horns before I saw the peppers, I thought about tinfoil as well. There's a bunch of different things that I was just glad to find. The peppers, I just thought it worked out to be a really good idea. Then we're going to use some of this other brown. I'm just going to do more. This one's a lot more darker. I just find using your finger works a lot better. Because chalk paint's really watery, so this one seems a little bit watery too. I don't know. All right, and then closer to the edge. And both of them don't have to be the same because nothing is ever, when you have the two, won't be. Now I'm just going to use that. Want more of a darker look near the end. Oops. The best thing about it is you can actually fix it all back up by just adding another coat of whatever you want to do over it. And you can just keep blending away till you get the desired look that you prefer. I'm going to show you the other one. I already glued it on, so we're one step ahead. And then I'm going to go back, and I want to use the lighter one and go back down here with some more. I should do more of the back, which I've kind of left out. And then once you, I'm going to finish this off the camera, so this is not, but you are going to kind of a look like that. Now I'd suggest cutting, when I tried to glue it on, there was a little bit too much fur, taking little scissors and cutting the area. So that little flap, and if you don't have that little flap, don't worry about it. Oh, it's not, of course the one side I did, but the other side's not finished. Is cutting the little area here, just down with the fur for a bit, hot glue around the edge. Just make sure you have them center on both sides so it will look like that. Now I didn't put the eye in yet. I'm gonna wait until I get it totally on there. I might add a little bit of the beige part just around here, just to add a little bit of color to the nose instead of just being plain, but you don't have to do that. Let me, oh no, and then there's one more thing that we're gonna do. Well, besides the flowers on there after. I had this piece because I thought about a tail. I've tried a couple different things. Now this piece was just a rummage piece that was kind of folded. I didn't round it. It's just kind of folded over in one of the seams that I found on the fur. And I just thought it just looks like a little ratty, just a ratty little tail that I think it would look perfect. I don't know which way I'd probably do it. Right on the end like that, and just hang it over. And it just sits, and I just think it would look perfect for that. So I'm going to glue that on, get the horn done, and then we'll move to the top of the flowers. So now that I got the horns, the other horn glued on, I decided to put an eye just right there. Kind of got to move the little bit of the fur out of the way to get it glued on great with hot glue. Now, the ears. Now, remember we probably had 4. I only had 2 because I couldn't find the other one when I was doing an experiment last time. You're just going to fold it over with some hot glue, just along the bottom, like this, and just pinch it. Once that is dry, I already did the other one, you're just going to see little openings like this. We are just going to, and you're just going to want to move the fur forward So you can see it there. And you're just gonna hot glue the ears just right along the side of the Jenga block side of the Jenga block and part of the horns, and you're just gonna hot glue them on there. You can just play with the fur, make it go down a little bit, I guess. Once you have that glued on, now I've seen so many separate ones with like roses. I do have roses, but they're not, I guess, I had some from the heart shapes. I remember at Valentine's Day, there was a heart with 3 of them on. I think I used them for something else. I only had the one. You can do different ones. I do have a little bit off-colored ones, but I found this headband I have, and I think I've worn it once about 10 years ago. I don't know why, I can't remember now. And I just thought this would look nice, and I would just cut it because I'm never gonna wear it. And I'm just gonna drape it down a little bit in the front and attach it. I'm gonna cut it and attach it behind the head. Now you can put greenery. You don't even have to put any flowers if you want. I'm just thought the white just offsets with the fur, and that's what I'm gonna go for. Once I do have cut this and have glued it on and glued the ears on, we are going to put it on the body. I am going to use that little bit of extra fur around the neck because I was already playing with it. It just gives it a more of a chunkier look for it. Now, like I said, to make it a little bit shorter, I would suggest taking the 3 blocks off. Once I get these glued on, I am going to glue it on, and I'm going to turn the camera upright so then you can see the the finished product. All right, guys. Here she is. I think she just turned out so cute. You can see the little tail in the back here. And I find too with the flowers, if you can find a little headband with flowers on it, it just has a nice little, keeps the hair on top, or the hair on the bottom, and the fur just gives it a nice lining. The horns turned out really well. And you can't notice where I put that little extra fur wrapped around. And that's the great thing about the fur, is that it just blends in well. You just move the fur around and it just blends in really nicely. So I did the count on the total count. So we had the body was 140, the neck was 6, the nose we did 4, the face was 32, the legs 8, and the chest were 5. So it totals out to be 195. Well, like I said on the neck, I would only do 1 layer of 3, not the 2 layers of 3, just to make it a little bit shorter. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate all of you that do take the time and come over to my Facebook Crafty Shopper page and share the crafts that you've recreated of my designs. I really appreciate it. You guys are all super talented. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Press that thumbs up. Happy crafting, and see you soon. Bye.